Okay. Oh, hi, everyone. Hi, everyone that's here in the room and everyone that's online. My name is Lorraine Darcy, and I'm going to admit to being the super sub. I have just stepped in here, and I know that our first speaker up, so we're going to get straight into that. Our first speaker up is Mr. Stephen Edwards from Living Streets, and he's going to be speaking on walking for everyone. And come on up and we'll get started. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, and apologies for the slightly late start. I'm going to just run us through quickly some research we did at Living Streets last year with colleagues from Sustrans and from Arup, looking at walking for everyone. What we did as part of this research, so I'm just kind of trying to work out where to, there we go, is did a literature review of kind of everything covering inequalities within the walking environment, and then made some recommendations on the kind of things that should be changed. It's written specifically in a UK context, but we do have some international examples in there of change that we want to see as well. And as part of the research, we conducted a number of stakeholder workshops just to try to go into kind of significant detail on the challenges facing all people walking and wheeling. In terms of our definition of inequalities, we use the definition in the UK Equalities Act, which basically has a number of what are called protected characteristics, all of which are listed down the side as well. And we considered the barriers within the walking environment for all of these groups. So I'm going to look at this presentation in two halves. First of all, I'm going to focus on what we found in terms of the barriers in the environment. Then I'm going to come on to the recommendations we made on what could be changed. So to start off on our findings, I think the first thing I'd pull out is we found, certainly in the UK context, that there was a significant lack of data in how walking was operating in practice. Walking, we found, was often not thought of as a specific and important mode of travel, and little attention was paid to it as a result by planners and by others as well, and particularly by government as well. And I think this is a bit of a theme we've seen running through the last couple of days of the conference as well. And one of the things we were really clear to bring out in the research is how we could address that going forwards. Looking at some of the challenges we experienced, again, many of these will be familiar from some of the discussions we've had over the last few days. First of all, we found there was a kind of poor and inaccessible walking environment with a number of physical barriers, lots of obstructions and crowding on the footway, so kind of impromptu storage of signs by shopkeepers, creating kind of clutter on the pavement parking, which is something I mentioned this morning in the plenary session as a big issue we've got in the UK, people parking their cars on the pavement and then taking out 80% of the footway as a result, and increasing problems with bikes and scooters, particularly hire bikes and scooters, which are, I think, becoming increasingly prevalent in a number of kind of European and indeed international cities, especially the dockless ones, where they're just kind of dumped on the pavement, creating huge issues, especially for visually impaired people. We saw a lot of incorrect use of design standards as well. There are pretty good design standards in many parts of the UK, but we saw really inconsistent usage of them. And we didn't have much confidence looking at the case studies throughout the country that the guidance was being followed in the correct way. And also, we noticed there was a complete lack of public facilities in many places. Things like resting places for older adults, absolutely critical to just have a well-placed bench which someone can sit on, especially someone that might not be able to walk as far as others. They were completely lacking, as were public facilities for children and pregnant women. we've talked a lot about safety as in kind of road safety today, but one other thing we looked at in detail in this research was personal safety as well. And especially in the UK context, safety of women has been a common issue over the last kind of few years, and racism and discrimination has been kind of growing as well. So we looked at some of the challenges around this, especially after dark. And again, many of the same issues I've just been highlighting came up again around a lack of public amenities, lack of decent lighting, and other things which just made the environment feel threatening, such as high crime levels, too much litter, and just a general lack of care for the environment. Aligned to that, we noticed a lot of harassment coming forward, and harassment was a big issue that came up in all of the interviews we conducted as part of this research and in the literature review, especially amongst LGBTQIA plus people. It was both harassment itself that we came across, but also a fear of harassment in the environment. So, even if harassment didn't happen, there was a fear that harassment might happen as a result sometimes of the way spaces were designed. When places were private, protected and controlled, there were greater fears of harassment. And clearly this was an issue that needed to be addressed if a true walking environment for everyone was to be created. Road safety was more obvious as a general issue, but we increasingly noticed that road safety was very much an equality issue as well. On-street parking created big barriers for blind and partially sighted people, and crossing in between cars kind of parked on the road was particularly a safety hazard for children who couldn't see over the tops of cars, for example. And people living in deprived areas had much more significant problems. We found that for children in particular, parental perception of road safety was often far more important than the child's perception of road safety. I think there was a chart that one of the speakers yesterday put up showing how much the reference area for a child has shrunk over the last 20 years. I think that's clearly something that came across in this research as well. Kind of parents kind of really being a lot more fearful of the environment and the dangers that posed. Just kind of going quickly through these issues so I can get on to the solutions. Air quality was a big challenge, and again, it was very much an equalities issue as well, as air quality was far worse in areas of deprivation, and kind of general lack of kind of support for communities as well, amongst kind of caregivers was an issue that came up a number of times. And this linked into kind of expectations around physical activity and physical exercise. Owning a car was in many communities seen as a status symbol, and there was a lack of recognition in some communities that active travel is in itself a valuable and important mode of transportation. Finally, on this section, before I come on to solutions, many groups had a lack of confidence in kind of walking in the environment. Physical health was a significant deterrent for older adults and for disabled people as well. And poor health and challenges moving in the environment created significant disincentives for people to exercise actively. So just kind of moving on to some of the solutions given the time that we proposed. We looked at solutions in we made three different sets of recommendations. One looking at broad governance, planning and decision making. One looking at what we need to do to create better places for everyone to walk and wheel. And finally, what more needs to be done to support people to walk and wheel. The first set of recommendations were around the need to develop inclusive walking and wheeling plans. And this is something that came up again and again in the literature review and in the wider case studies we looked at. The headline point I'll pull out of this is the need for separate walking plans rather than just walking and cycling plans. In so many different places, walking seems to be lumped together with cycling, and cycling is, as we've heard again and again today, seen as the kind of the sexier mode. So walking gets downgraded and often overlooked as a result. So we're calling, as part of this research, for specific walking action plans that can account for the benefits of walking in planning and appraisal, and can look at the distinct and separate needs of walking. Secondly, we want to see dedicated long-term funding for walking, wheeling specifically, and that to guarantee that walking and wheeling are inclusive, accessible, and desirable. Again, in many European countries, great progress has been made on funding for active travel generally, but the walking budget is sometimes lost within the wider walking and cycling budget, and more needs to be done to ensure that walking has kind of distinct needs within the distinct needs of walking are taken into account. Needs to be demonstrated how schemes and interventions are tackling inequalities actively. And we notice that things like school streets and low traffic neighbourhoods are the types of interventions that are really, really positive for walking. But also quite small interventions can make a big difference sometimes as well. And then thirdly, in the first set, we want government to take steps to ensure that policy decisions are based on diverse choices, especially those that are of groups that are marginalised. And key to this is looking at how we engage communities and how we're pulling those communities that might not necessarily have a voice in debates into our decision-making actively. In too many places, we see decisions being dictated by kind of white middle-class males almost, and as a result, the kind of transport schemes that are being designed are designed around their needs rather than the needs of the wider community. And the way to address this is by creating, for example, panels of diverse kind of people with lived experience of the problems on the ground. Aligned with what I said right at the beginning, we need far better data as well, and we make specific recommendations on the data that needs to be made and ways in which we can kind of look at getting that. But also, kind of critical to this whole subject is the need to really fundamentally look at our planning system and embed this principle of proximity into that planning system. So rather than having to commute long distances, we're really looking at how we can adopt, say, a 20-minute neighbourhood approach or a 15-minute neighbourhood or even a 10-minute neighbourhood approach, as we heard earlier on, into our decision-making and really break this cycle of car dependency that is embedded in so many different places. And finally, the all-important link with public transport as well. All of the research highlights that walking rates will increase significantly if they're aligned with public transport rates, particularly bus investment. So there is an intrinsic link between investment in walking and investment in public transport and investment in routes to public transport and bus stops. And again, this is an equalities issue because public transport currently is kind of highly gendered, and black people, for example, travel significantly more by bus than other ethnic groups. So we need to think carefully about how we're ensuring that public transport options are working for everyone. The second set of recommendations are around creating better places for everyone. And the big issue for us here was around the need for national design guidance for walking and wheeling. In the UK, we've got cycling design guidance, but we haven't got any walking design guidance. And the cycling design guidance has got real teeth in that government can withhold money for schemes that don't meet those standards, but there is nothing equivalent for walking. So we really want to see an equivalent guidance, bank of guidance put in place for walking with real teeth and that link to national funding to really deliver the message to local authorities that if they don't deliver schemes to sufficient standard and don't think of equalities when they're delivering schemes, they will not get funding. Secondly, we really need urgent steps to improve road safety, air quality and reduce physical severance within our road network. Again, the research all showed that many people from ethnic minorities live in deprived areas, and amongst marginalised groups, they are more likely to be involved in road collisions or suffer from air pollution. So addressing these issues is all the more urgent than when you consider it through an equalities prism. And then we wanted to look at pavement space as well, and ensuring that pavement space was reserved and maintained for people walking and wheeling. And this goes back to some of the issues I was mentioning right at the beginning around the challenges with pavement parking in the UK, but also some of the issues with pavement clutter as well and the problems that causes. And then I'll skip over that one. And then just finally, we looked at ways in which everyone can be supported to walk and wheel. I think part of this is around continuing to raise the profile of walking and wheeling and equipping people with the tools and the information they need, and also ensuring that when we're talking about walking and wheeling, we are talking about diversity and ensuring that things as simple as the resources we're publishing really reflect the diversity we see in communities, and ensure that our planning tools and our route planning tools really reflect the need for kind of equalities as well. Secondly, we wanted to see far more investment in walking and wheeling programs to improve the confidence ability of all groups in society. Social prescribing, you may be familiar with, something that is on the increase across the UK. And we want to see far more piloting and scaling up of social prescribing programs through the UK National Health Service, so people can be directed to walking programs and groups can be self-sustaining in the longer term. And finally, we wanted to see a kind of reverse in this kind of childhood, this decline in childhood independent mobility, which I mentioned earlier on, by really looking at ways in which we can prioritise children's needs within public spaces. I think it was the minister earlier on that spoke about the need to be able to safely let go of the hand of a 5-year-old walking down the street, and that's something that has certainly declined significantly in the UK. And one way to address that is by ensuring you put in place a kind of load of proposals, such as reducing traffic around schools, thinking hard about routes to school and how they can be made as safe as possible, but also just generally prioritising children within the planning system and when we're making kind of these important decisions. So the Walking for Everyone research really provides a framework on which we can build in the future if we're going to design more inclusive walking and wheeling practices. But key to successful implementation is kind of partnerships, something we've heard about a lot today, and that's partnerships both with the third sector, but also partnerships with business as well. I think there's also a massive gap in data, especially for specific groups that were identified within this research. And one thing that we want to look at further in the future is how we can address that data gap, so we can kind of come up with even stronger proposals on how to reduce barriers for specific groups and really address some of the issues that I've highlighted in the presentation today. So I think we've got an opportunity for questions earlier on, but in the meantime, that's all for me. So I'll pass over to the next speaker.
Fantastic. Thanks, Stephen. So, and I forgot to say at the start that we have the Slido available to those that are online and in the room for asking questions. And we'll see, because of the delayed start, we'll just work through the presentations, and if we have time for Q&A at the end, then we can have a group discussion, if that's okay with everybody. So next up, we have Miss Corrine Kilbora from the Intergenerational Pedibus. I remember reading this abstract and being very excited about it. From Switzerland, so you're very welcome. Come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very glad to be here and share with you our experiences with this international pedibus. And I apologize for my English. I haven't used it for a while, so we'll see how it goes. From my personal, I've been personally working for the ITE for 1 year. I used to be an addiction prevention specialist. But it's a pleasure to engage me in such a good project with also a health promotion project in my eyes. So we are going to go through a little introduction. Then I will just present the pedibus, how it works in Switzerland, and then we will go to this international pedibus and then open the discussion. So, as I mentioned before, I'm working for the ATE, Association for Transport and Environment. This is an association with 100,000 members, and we act on political level for active transport, but we also have concrete projects. In particular, we have various projects targeting the forgotten groups, namely the elderly people and the children. And among these projects, the pedibus walking school bus has been run by the ITE for now 20 years. So, what's the pedibus? Walking school bus. If I go through, ça marche plus. Boing, boing. No. Which meter? Oh, this one. Ah, okay. Oh, it's too long. So, just to remember, what is a pedibus? It's a group of children between 4 and 8 years old who go and who walk to and come from school with the guidance of a parent. It's a group of parents who share this pathway to school. The parents who choose the stops, the schedules, and who walks when, and that's it. And this system is making the school safer, the road safer. We have less taxi parents. It's also good for the physical activity because when the children are going to school by foot, they walk almost 30 minutes a day. And it permits to the kids to learn progressively the rules for what regards the road. So, and we provide support all the year long for the parents with materials and tools. We also organize festive events, and that's why we have a success for the walking bus in Switzerland. We have more than 3,060 lines in Switzerland, in the French part and Italian part, namely. So yes, that's it for the pedibus. Now for the intergenerational pedibus. So this idea came from a line we had in Gland. It is a little city in Switzerland. And the line, who had 6 parents, 7 children, invited 2 seniors to guide the line. That was on an event. And this line is still working with this senior. That is very good. And we decided to replicate this model. We wanted to replicate this model. But this was in 2019, and then came the pandemic, so we had to stop. So we relaunched the project last year. It's not the final presentation, but it's okay. We just look at what is the situation of the seniors in Switzerland. We see that it's an increasing part of the population in Switzerland. It is the 5th. We also know that a large part, 90% of the seniors feel healthy, and they are usually walking. That's a good base to do the international pedibus. But we also know that a minority, 1 out of 5, feel sometimes isolated. 1 out of 8 is suffering sometimes from emotional distress. That is also a reason to get in this direction and to see the walking bus as a social cohesion facilitator. So, we started with information. We did a flyer. We did also a film where you can see these senior talking about the experiences they share with the children. And we also build partners with the senior association, namely Pro Senectute, Grandparents for the Climate, and also local senior association. And then we organize several actions. The first is this one. It was a letter that was distributed to the children in class, and they had to draw, to join the dots, and then give this letter to seniors in their neighborhood and to invite them to walk to school with them. That was our first action for, I think, 900 children. This action the goal is to bring people together, because information is the first step, but we need to go further. We also organized 5 workshops where we bring families and seniors together to build some artwork together. And these artwork were then put on the way to school for a couple of weeks with an information about the project. And this was also in a time to share information, to discuss the opportunity to build a line, and so on. That was supervised by a socio-cultural animator. The next action were the narrative coffee. We organized 5 narrative coffee. That is a temporary community. It's formed in a space of a meeting between people who don't know each other and who tell stories and experiences related to a particular topic. Obviously, our topic was the way to school, nowadays, in the past. And yes, once the participants are settled, the story can begin, generating moments of happiness, surprise, and inspiration. And we could count with a national concept we have in Switzerland, who gives key to organize such an event and give also the list of the animators who are sorry. Yes, were trained for that kind of activity. That went really good, and we could recruit some seniors. The fourth action is yet to be organized. For 2 months, we will ask the children participating in a walking bus to invite an elderly person on the line. And the children who has success will win a World Cup knitted by a group of seniors, and they will earn the opportunity to finish the World Cup by knitting the pom-pom with a senior. That's the idea. We'll see. Okay, that's a new opportunity to bring the people together. So we did all these things. This thing will happen in October, November. So we met some challenges with this action. For the first one, in the school, it was good, but anyway, with the school, you need to prepare more with preliminary work with the teacher, with the direction, and we want to replicate this letter. For the workshop, it was very difficult to find seniors to participate, and we think we also did a little survey, and we see that the senior post-pandemic have fear is maybe a big word, but are not so ready to go, to participate, to meet people. They have also other activities. They are already looking after their own grandchildren, for example, or in holidays, or have hobbies also, especially the healthy seniors, and maybe a fear of responsibility. We also ask the parents, they are ready to accept senior on the line. Yes, with the assurance the senior is healthy. But still, despite these challenges, we see opportunities, mainly because we have political support. We found financial support from 2 health public services from the cantons. We know from the literature that intergenerational projects provide for the senior a stress reduction, better health, a sense of purpose, social integration, and it contributes to the neighborhood life. And we also know that for the children, that is also good. We build respect, they learn new skills, the self-esteem improve. So it builds mutual awareness and understanding. And in the film, I cannot show you today, but the senior says, "Oh, it's amazing how the children tell us a little secret. I didn't expect that, and it's really, really good." And now, after 1 year, we have 60 lines with a senior. That's not so much, but as I heard this morning from Stefan, we need patience. And 60 lines, that means also 60 really good story to tell. And I think we will we'll bring these 60 lines together to exchange the experience and tell about that, and that will make some more media attention to this project, and maybe more intergenerational line for the pedibus. Yes. So I'm at the end, and I thank you a lot. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Corinne. My voice is slowly going. I just love the concept of grandparents for climate. And, you know, that I think we assume, like we talk about children being the answer. And I don't think we don't give enough credit to the grandparents who, you know, and to the older generations who want to do their piece too. And I think it's such a lovely project. And I think could be really, there's a lot of potential for applicability in lots of different scenarios and places. So thank you very much for that. Do we have Karen? No? Okay. So, Niamh, if we are ready to come on up. So this is the Woodlands for Health program, which we've heard mentioned a few times over the past few days in plenary sessions. So we have Charlie in the room here, and we have Jason in the room here. We have a number of people from the team, and Niamh is going to tell us about the evaluation work that has been done on the project. I'm right in that, haven't I, Niamh? A bit of everything. There we are. I'll just make sure this is working before I get going. There we go. Okay.
Hello, fellow walkers and walking enthusiasts. My name is Niamh Ní Chonaill, and I am National Woodlands and Nature Project Lead here in Ireland. And I am absolutely delighted to be here today to tell you about Woodlands for Health. So this is what I've got in store for you for the next about 11 and a half minutes. So we will begin with a short exercise to get you all in the right headspace. I will briefly cover the general thoughts and evidence around nature, mental health and well-being before launching into my whistle-stop introduction of the Woodlands for Health programme. I will tell you about its origins, the current national picture, how it happens, the evaluation and research on the programme, where we hope to take it next, and then I will send you all on your merry way to McGowan's. Now, because nothing beats a bit of first-hand experience, I would like to invite you all to softly focus your gaze on this picture for a couple of moments. So, as you do so, take a second to consider how you're feeling. How you're feeling in your body, in your mind, your breathing. And you can close off your eyes if you like, or you can keep looking at this picture, but see if you can start to tune out the room a little bit and see if you can mentally transport yourself to this woodland space. What do you see around you? What do you hear? What do you feel? What can you smell? Take it all in, as many details as you can. And see if you can make your next couple of breaths a little bit slower and a little bit deeper. Immerse yourself in the moment and in the feelings of being there. And as much as I would like to leave it there, and as much as I'm sure you would like to stay there, we'll bring ourselves back to the room and do the presentation. And take a second to see how you're feeling now. Hopefully a little bit better in some or any way. Visualizing nature has been proven to have benefits for mental health and well-being, but immersing yourself in nature and walking in nature is even better. So the evidence around time spent in nature and mental health and well-being is compelling, to say the least. The effectiveness of nature-based interventions is supported by over 4 decades of evidence, and I have ambitiously attempted to sum it up in just one slide. So the Yale School of the Environment refers to the growing body of research combined with an intuitive understanding. Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, has been part of the Japanese National Health Programme since 1982. Now, apologies in advance if there is anybody in the room from Norway. My West Cork accent does not best lend itself to this word, but the Norwegian concept of friluftsliv, meaning open-air living, was popularized in the 1850s and is considered a key contributor to physical and mental health. According to the Global Wellness Institute, nature is at last and fast becoming one of the 4th pillar of health, alongside exercise, diet, and sleep. A study of 20,000 people in the European Centre for the Environment and Human Health at the University of Exeter showed that people who spend 2 hours a week in green spaces, either all at once or spread out over multiple visits, were substantially more likely to report improved health and psychological well-being than those who don't. And this sample did include people who had different occupations from different socioeconomic classes, different ethnic groups, and also included disabled people and people with chronic illnesses. So to sum it all up in the words of the Environment to Attain and Restore Health project by my neighbours over in NUI Galway, we are part of nature and we need nature to be healthy. So now that you are all completely sold on the idea, I'll tell you about what I do. So Woodlands for Health began, as many things do, with one person and a great idea. Charlie Burke, who you heard from yesterday, and I'm delighted is here today, is part of Coilta's recreation team, Coilta being Ireland's state-owned forest manager. 10 years ago, Charlie heard about the award-winning Branching Out programme in Scotland. He paid them a visit, came home to Wicklow and said, we have to do this. And as a result, we have Woodlands for Health, a 12-week woodland-based walking programme for adults who are availing of mental health supports and services. It's offered by national partners, Get Ireland Walking, Coilta, Mental Health Ireland, and Maynooth University. I actually forgot I put that picture of myself on the end. Each week for 12 weeks, about 15 to 20 people gather together along with walk leaders and facilitators and take a walk in the woods. And it really is that simple. Woodlands for Health is co-produced with participants' mental health in mind, and it is an accessible and sustainable way for people to use the natural world as part of a toolkit for managing their mental health. Transport and refreshments are provided, and participants are supported in progressing on to other nature-based and physical activity programs following the 12 weeks. Now, I did worry that these figures would become outdated in the month between my submitting these slides and presenting them. Such is the rate of growth and the demand for this programme, and I am delighted to say that I was correct. So Woodlands for Health currently exists in 21 counties around Ireland, 4 having come on board just this year in 2022, with another 4 counties in the planning stages at the moment. Across these 21 counties, there are 32 Woodlands for Health programmes, 13 of which began in 2022, with another 10, that's the bit that was outdated, in the pipeline. So we are on track to have 42 programs either running or with a start date for spring 2023 across all 26 counties of the Republic of Ireland by the end of this calendar year. As we know, these things don't just happen. So this is the how. Woodlands for Health is overseen by the National Woodlands and Nature for Health and Wellbeing Steering Group, quite a mouthful, which is made up of members of the aforementioned partner organisations, Caolta, Get Ireland Walking, Mental Health Ireland and Maynooth University. This group provides structure, support and advice to Woodlands for Health programmes across the country. National working groups focus on specific areas, programmes, evaluation, communications and marketing, and include representatives from national and local level partners. As of 2022, the national partners have co-funded a National Woodlands and Nature Project Lead, that's me, to coordinate and oversee existing and newly developing programmes. The programmes are then implemented by local level steering groups, which include representatives from the national partner organisations and local organisations too, such as the crucial referral sources, which include but are not limited to occupational therapists, mental health nurses, social prescribers and mental health associations. Costs for the programme include transport, refreshments and sometimes walk leaders. Sometimes they do it voluntarily, which is incredibly nice. The cost is often shared amongst the local steering group participant or organisers and organisations who are also supported in accessing local and national level funding opportunities and applications. Transport is undoubtedly the biggest cost associated with the programme, and we are working on various ways to manage and reduce this, including bringing transport organisations onto the steering groups and accessing tree-filled areas that are in the participants' localities so that they're easier to get to, cheaper to get to, and this also helps with sustainability of the outcomes following the programmes. If there's anyone here from the National Transport Authority, come and see me afterwards. But I know that you are all a scientific and logical bunch, so you want to hear about the evaluation. So as Charlie mentioned yesterday, in the early days of Woodlands for Health, way back in 2014, a study was completed by the HSE and the University College of Dublin. These results showed a 75% increase in mood, a 66% increase in sleep, and an 82% decrease in suicidal thoughts. Interviews found benefits including reduced medication dosage and cost, decreased number of clinical appointments, and that some participants returned to work or education. Participants also went on to form a peer-led social group who met up every week to do all sorts of outdoor activities. A 2020 report was completed by Dr. Tig McIntyre with Go Green Routes, and this evaluated Woodlands for Health programmes across 6 counties, gathering information from 150 participants. This research found a 31% improvement in self-reported well-being, as well as a 10.8% increase in already high nature connectedness, which we know can encourage pro-environmental behaviours and in turn aid environmental sustainability. We continue to evaluate the programmes so that they can be improved and expanded upon, as well as contributing to the already impressive evidence base proving the benefits of nature for mental health, well-being and recovery. We're beginning process evaluations as well as outcome evaluations, and we're utilising anecdotal feedback to guide us as we are constantly hearing of new and unexpected benefits, everything from smoking cessation to social connections. So, where to next? The natural progression, world domination. But we will start with having national coverage by the end of 2022, which I mentioned we are well on track to achieving. We're developing resources for our existing and newly developing and upcoming programme facilitators, including an all-encompassing implementation guide, which is my current labour of love. We will keep working with local level partners and find ways to reach the people for whom walking in nature is not part of their lives. Not yet, anyway. We will continue to spread the good word to folks like yourselves and those with the power to make sure that nature is an integral part of the toolkit for mental health. The sky, or indeed the treetops, is the limit. Couldn't help myself. Oh no, one more. I would love to answer any questions that you've got afterwards. And I could quite clearly talk about this all day. But for now, Gurv Mila Mahagaev, Agus Ganairi and Boher Lev. Thanks a million and good luck, or literal translation, may the road rise up to meet you. Now we're close.
Thanks a million, Eve. She's just warming you all up for McGowan's. Expect this level of crack for the rest of the evening. For anyone who doesn't understand the colloquial, crack in Ireland is C-A-R-I-C, which just means fun that has just a little bit of, messing about it. So we're just warming you up. And actually, just as a little linkage, Ganairi and Boherlev, the comment about may the road always rise before you, that when we received a handover of the conference from Korea, from South Korea, from the city of Seoul, they presented our TU Dublin president with a pair of shoes with flowers on them. And they had a phrase that may you always walk in a bed of flowers. It always reminded me of that, Ganairi and Boherlev. So there's a reason why when you leave this building and walk across to the East Quad that you're walking on pictures of flowers on the pavement, just in case you hadn't. I think we hadn't said it yet anywhere, but that's the reason that we have those flowers on the ground. Thanks very much, Niamh. So, Karen, no, okay, perfect. So Peter DeHaan. So, and he's going to speak, Peter's going to speak on shared space to include all people walking. And this is one of those topics that, we're constantly coming up against as a challenge. It's constantly presented as a challenge. We know the benefits of shared space, but I'm really interested to hear what you're going to say and how you're going to help us, Peter.
Thank you very much. My English is also not that good as yours. But it's years ago when I taught in Nottingham Trent University for the first time in English. Then I said to the students, as long as your Dutch is not as good as my English, no complaint, please. I will help you to go through a lot of pictures. Pictures, as they say more than words. And a lot more than words sometimes, and you have enough words the days before. I'm talking about shared space, and this is what I should like to do. Okay, sorry. You will see what happens. People share space and build communities. When you share the space and you have sometimes, a lot of time, you have to share the space, then you meet each other in a better way than separated on base of gender or based on mode of transport, etc. Some words about it. Sometimes people ask me, do we have a definition of shared space? And I always say no. We don't have a definition. It's a set of conditions how to do and to use shared space or not. This is a very long description of it, and it's far too long for shared space. This is the better one, the left one. That's what I mean. Please walk on the grass. And Stuart Lipton from Cape in the UK did also a search of definition. These are the conditions I would mention to use. When it's only going from A to B, don't think of shared space. But when you have not enough space, you have to share. And with all those modes at the moment, extra with scooters, etc., it's every time more needed to use the space together. And this is the principle. It's very easy. How would you behave in a situation like this? You have a net and you feel quite safe. But what happens in your behavior when there's no net? Then you behave safe. That's what's happening. It's visible. It was visible. You see the policeman looking into a car from above, from his horse. And what we most see now in traffic are anonymous cars. We don't see even the people. A car, I always say, is a person. But in this case, it's almost nothing than a car. What happened in the history? We started with rules and regulation in 1928 in Rotterdam. The first, for the Netherlands, the first traffic measure was made by a policeman standing at the bridge and said, stick to the right. That was all. And then separation because different speeds, cyclists and pedestrians and cars. So it's so dangerous. So we need to separate. And we need more legislation and more signs and more police and more examination and testing, and you need a driver license, etc. And education at school, at school gardens, etc. And more fines and more penalties. And where does this end? And in my opinion, it ends in shared space. Some examples. This is what's happening with communities. You widen the street, and you separate communities. Parents say to their kids, stick on this side, because it's dangerous to go to the other side. Donald Appleyard did research, maybe you know this, already in the 50s. And he asked the people on the top, where are your relations in this street? Please, can you make a line? And that was a street with low traffic. And then in another street with high traffic, you see the relations are not on the other side anymore, but are almost alongside the road. That's what's happening when traffic is separating communities. This is in my town, very nice place, and it's almost shared space. It's 1920s or something. And then footpaths are becoming, and even a car. It's the same place. Again, the same place, and there's already a roundabout and a traffic sign, I think in the 50s. And then more lines, etc. And this is what it's now. It's a traffic place and no more a human place. Here you see it from above, the same place. And signs can also be obvious, not necessary. I don't know what it is. And then we started in this place in the 90s to take away all the signs. And you see them working on it. It can be too much and far too much. It was in Belgium I made this picture. Because who would go there? It can be confusing. We are confused with all this. The blue one I like. But signs are always also used as a sort of getting rid of responsibility. I put a sign, and then I don't have any responsibility anymore. And this is what happened. The first signs I made these pictures in Spain, Entrada and Salida, very nice, old, in an alley on both sides. And that's that policeman at the bridge. I skip this. This is take two more. Oh yeah, here this movie runs. Yes, it was in Bristol, and where they decided let's do the same as in the Netherlands. We take away the signs on this place. Oh no, the traffic lights, and we blocked them. And there was a big advertising in the papers. Next week we take away the signs. It's a rather complicated junction, and this was in the before time. It takes too long. I don't have so much time. Okay. Look, this is the advertising. And then after the switch off, you see the lights are covered with orange bags. So there were no lights working anymore. And this is how the traffic flows. And after the first period of 1 week, they said, oh, we try another week. And then they decided, oh, it works well. We don't need these lights anymore. Okay, I continue. What is public space? This is a nice place somewhere in Romania where a valley and the place is follows the form of the river. That's how it's growing, not planned, but growing. And it's a place for everyone. You have the living room, and in a natural way. And that's, in my opinion, very important. It's owned by the people. When you talk about engaging people, I say we use or we help people to make their own place. Sometimes to help them to solve their problems. But when they have solved it, it's their place, it's their solution. And then it gets their identity. And this is what we try in shared space, make it according to the history of the place and the future. This was in Norfolk, and there's a little bit about psychology. I'm a psychologist. I'm not an engineer. I'm lucky today that I'm not. What they did there is bringing the trees more next to the road. When you enter the village, and the trees are also more next to each other. That means when you drive there, you experience the speed. Because when the trees are coming fast, then your speed is too high. So you slow down. This is the place where they took the signs off, the old picture you saw. And this is about the context. What we did there is making a sort of roundabout. And zebra is there, but for convenience only far away. But the most important thing are the fountains. No, you cannot see them here, but here and on that side are fountains. And they are connected with sensors in the road. When the volume of traffic is higher, then the fountains are higher. That's giving more context to the place. The context is also studied related to speed. This is done by a student of mine, and he did the following. He changed the sides. Yes, going quickly. And then you feel, as in your green way, here you feel your speed. It depends on the context. It's still every time the same road. And this is without people. It could also be done with people. I go time and speed. I do this quicker. You can read it. It has also to do with our way of looking. But it's high speed, then you have a very small field of watching. So you don't see the people walking at the side. When you bring down the speed, you can see the whole picture. Here you see it at 25 kilometers per hour, and then it's going down. Relatives, I skip that. And then I have some places in shared space already, and you can see the left one under is the old situation, and that one is the new situation. Completely different. And it works already for 20 years. Here also, before and after, for and after, it's that. This is a schoolyard. You see the schoolyard is gated, so for safety. And cars come in this village. And what they did, together with the children and the school and the parents, they extended the schoolyard over the road. Now, when you're now coming there by car, then you're on a school yard and not anymore on the road. That gives a different feeling. It's rather dramatic, but it works. Yeah. This is another example where we, the old crossing there, and we made a new triangle square. That's rather a strange word. International examples. This is Sweden, Norrköping, also before and after. And still, this is New York at Times Square, where they took also away after with this same idea. We bring the speeds down with people on the place. So it's a people's place. It's a human place. Kensington High Street. Guidance there. And take away it, and people can cross the street wherever they want, and not with fences. Very famous example in London, yes. As for this is UK, Auckland, New Zealand, Switzerland, Genk, Romania, even Finland. Yeah, this is the last one. I started. This is 7 Dials in London, and it's not designed as a shared space, but it works as a shared space. There's a very little monument in the middle, that round, and the 7 streets are coming there. And before it was regulated with traffic lights. And now it works like this. And who knows Faulty Towers? With the major, he is coming here. One moment. There he comes. Okay, I cannot better illustrate shared space like this. Thank you all.
Thanks very much, Peter. We might get all our speakers to come on up here to the chairs, and we'll see if there's any questions. All right, Paula, come on. Is there any questions? No, questions from the room, even better. So you can stay where you are, so if you want for questions from the room. Anyone got any? Jason.
Yeah, I just a question for this gentleman, Peter. What's your name again? Sorry.
It's Peter.
Peter, when you took out the signs and you took out the traffic lights, or you covered the traffic lights, what was the immediate impact? I looked at pedestrians and I thought, if I was a pedestrian there, would I feel safe?
Queues were gone.
Queues for cars or not?
Yeah.
I get that's one thing, but what about the pedestrian?
They felt free. One part you can see it as well. People felt free to cross the street easier.
Did they feel safe? Did you do any research around their perception?
No, I'm sorry.
No, you
And
didn't.
I can give you Point and Regenerated. It's on YouTube. It's a colleague of mine, and he made this. And there you can see how people react on the new situation. Point and Regenerated on YouTube.
Point and Regenerated, just for people at home. Point and Regenerated. So Ben Hamilton Bally is shared.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a BBC report.
Oh, it's a BBC report.
I just found that it looked a little bit, dangerous for me. You know, even that Morgan terrorist gentleman there, somebody standing on the roundabout or that space in the middle, and a taxi was passing them just a couple of feet away.
People are friendly.
And everybody.
But the situation makes their behavior.
Yeah.
Sometimes I give the example of a supermarket. You go to the supermarket with your card, and then you say, please, can I have it here? Or may I pass? Or I can wait. That's friendly. As soon as you pay and you go to your car and you put your stuff in the car, you're no longer a person, but you're a car driver. And then you don't communicate with each other, you communicate with the system of lights, etc. You get off. Because with your bike, you should be there. And I need here.
It's an interesting perspective, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen it.
All people are, in general, friendly people, but the situation makes
5%.
the behavior for as part.
5% of the population is not friendly, and that makes a big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an equity piece. Like, you know, I think this is what you get into when we bring everyone to the same level in a space and give everyone equal access, and that's what this does. It gives everyone equal opportunity in the space where they have to look at each other, make eye contact, say, "What are you going to do?"
Yeah.
And for me, this is why I love zebra crossings. Is rather than a pedestrian light where you have to press for permission, that a driver approaching a zebra crossing has to take into consideration who is around you, and it's the same in the shared space. And I know that in particular here in Ireland, the disability associations, they're not comfortable with shared space because they want more direction and they want the comfort and security of pressing a button and an indication when to cross. And that's something that we're still working our way through, is finding that balance. Yeah.
Because where I'm from the country and where I learned to drive and did my driving test in that town, there are no traffic lights, there are 2 zebra crossings in the whole town, and I just didn't know that it was different anywhere else until I went to university. But it's interesting. It's still the same.
Yeah, and I think the cultural association, sorry, I'm jumping in here. The cultural associations, and in Limerick, if anyone goes to Limerick when you're here, it's default jaywalking in Limerick. It's default shared space in Limerick City.
Yeah.
It's cultural. And if you ever hear of someone nearly getting knocked down by a car in Limerick, you'd be sure that the person driving the car isn't from Limerick, because locally they know to look at because it's a local cultural thing. And I think, would you agree?
Years ago, I was talking to a hired policeman about this idea, and then they wanted to know about it. And afterward, they said, "Oh, this looks very good and very fine, but what should we do? Do we?" I said, "You are for the bastards. They're always there, and I cannot help it.
Yeah.
They are in every system."
No, it's true. And we've normalized a new system, a system where we rely on traffic lights and traffic signage, and litigation is a major part of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Is there any other questions in the room? If not, we'll start stretching our legs and getting our dancing shoes ready. Have you got a question? No, dancing more important. And just so you're aware, tonight at McGowan's, that we have traditional Irish musicians coming, but we also have a Céilí caller. Right, so for anyone, yeah, Niamh is getting very excited. So, which means that you're going to learn a little bit of Irish dancing tonight too. So, lots of physical activity for everyone. So, thank you all very, very much for those of you here in the room and for those of you online, and have a really lovely evening. Thank you.